All right, let's talk about a feature that's been hiding in plain sight on like every Windows PC for the last 15 years. It's a safety net you've probably scrolled right past 100 times. We're talking about the classic backup and restore tool. You know, that relic from the Windows 7 era that has a surprisingly wild story. So, here's what we're going to do. We're going to pull this thing out of the digital attic and see what it's all about. We'll look at where it came from, break down the two totally different ways it could protect you, get into how it actually worked its magic, untangle its very confusing family tree, and finally, figure out why it just slowly faded away.
Okay, so first things first. What exactly was this tool, and what kind of digital disasters was it supposed to save us from?
I'm willing to bet you've seen this icon before. If you've ever dug around in the maze that is the Windows control panel, this little guy with the computer and the green arrows has probably caught your eye. It's a total throwback, right? A tool from a different time in computing. But believe it or not, it's still kicking around. And its story, well, it tells you a lot about how Microsoft's thinking has changed over the years.
This was Microsoft's big answer to a problem that's as old as computers themselves. See, when Windows Vista came out, this was supposed to be the built-in solution for protecting your digital life from, well, everything. A hard drive suddenly dying, some nasty malware eating your data, or even just you accidentally deleting the wrong folder. It was a huge step up from the thing it replaced, an old, clunky tool called NT Backup that most people, frankly, found impossible to use. Now, here's what made this tool so cool and so versatile. It wasn't just one thing. It was kind of like a two-for-one deal, offering two completely different ways to back up your stuff, each with its own special powers.
So you had two choices. On one hand, you could be a surgeon. The file and folder backup lets you pick and choose your most precious files, your documents, your photos, whatever, and it would tuck them away into nice, simple zip files. But on the other hand, you could be a sledgehammer. The system image option created a perfect bit-for-bit clone of your entire drive. It was literally like having a time machine for your whole computer.
So if we dig into that file backup a little more, the really smart thing about it was how efficient it was. It could do incremental backups. That just means after you did the first big backup, it would only save the files that had actually changed since last time. That saved a ton of time and, more importantly, a ton of space. And while the first version in Vista was a little bossy, it made you back up whole categories like all your pictures, the Windows 7 version finally gave you the power to just let me choose. You could pick exactly the folders you cared about.
And then there was this system image. Man, this thing was powerful. This wasn't just saving some files. This was a complete snapshot of your entire system, all bundled into one single file called a virtual hard disk, or VHD. If your computer ever completely died, you could use this to restore everything exactly as it was. But here's the coolest part. You could also just mount that backup file, and it would show up like a normal USB drive. Then you could just dive in and pull out that one photo you accidentally deleted last week. So cool.
Right, so how did this all work under the hood? I mean, think about it. How can you back up a file that you're literally using at that exact moment without the whole thing getting corrupted? Well, the answer is actually pretty brilliant. The secret sauce was a piece of tech called the Volume Shadow Copy Service, or VSS. When you started a backup, VSS would basically take an instant photograph of your entire hard drive, creating this temporary read-only snapshot. Then, the backup tool would copy everything from that frozen in-time photo, totally ignoring the live system you were still working on. It was a genius way to make sure you got a perfect, consistent backup every single time.
And of course, for all you techies and IT pros out there, you weren't just stuck with the friendly clickable interface. Oh no. Windows also included this awesome command line tool called WBadmin. It lets you script and automate and control every little detail of the backup process, giving you the ultimate power trip.
But here's where the story gets messy. Because this amazing, powerful tool, it wasn't the same for everybody. Nope. Depending on which version of Windows you actually bought, you got a totally different set of tools. And as you can probably guess, that created a whole lot of confusion.
I mean, just look at this chart. It's kind of wild. If you had the super cheap starter edition, you got nothing, zero backup tool. If you had Home Basic, okay, you could back up files, but you couldn't schedule it to happen automatically. And that super powerful system image feature, forget about it unless you shelled out for the high-end Professional or Ultimate editions. This whole system was basically a classic upsell designed to push people to buy the more expensive versions of Windows. And it meant a lot of people never even knew the best features existed.
And that brings us to the final, kind of sad chapter in this story. Because after hitting its peak with Windows 7, backup and restore started this long, slow slide into becoming obsolete. even though, weirdly, it never completely went away.
You can just see the roller coaster ride here. It had its golden age in Windows 7. Then, with Windows 8, Microsoft officially deprecated it, which is just a fancy way of saying they didn't want you to use it anymore. They hid it and renamed it. In Windows 8.1, it was practically invisible. But then, and this is the strange part, it popped right back up in Windows 10, now with Windows 7 literally tacked on to its name. It's like a living fossil inside a modern operating system.
So, why the big change? Well, the official story from Microsoft was that not enough people were actually using the old tool. So, starting with Windows 8, they started pushing a new, much simpler feature called File History. The whole idea was for it to be more automatic and way less scary for the average person.
And what about that amazing, super powerful system image feature? The one that could save your entire PC? Well, get this. Microsoft's official advice today is just go use something else. Seriously. They now openly recommend you go find software from another company if you want that kind of backup. They basically just walked away from their own powerful, built-in solution.
So this whole story leaves us with a pretty big question, one that's more important now than ever. In today's world, where our documents live on OneDrive, our photos are on Google Drive, and everything seems to sync to the cloud automatically, does this old-school idea of making a full local copy of our entire computer even matter anymore? Is it a forgotten necessity, or is it just a relic from a time before the cloud? It's a real trade-off between having total control versus total convenience, and it's definitely something worth thinking about the next time you go to save a really important file.